Is Civ 7 a failure? It is looking really bad. As a person that was there for the Civ 5 launch on ground level, Civ 6's launch, this is kind of normal for the Sid Meier's Civilization franchise to be released, and it doesn't look like it's in a very good state. I gotta be honest though, something feels really different about this one. Civ 7, which was released 2 months ago, isn't even in the top 100, and even worse than that, Civ 5, a game that came out in 2010, is beating out. It has more players right now playing it than Civilization 7. That's insane. And on another note, I feel like maybe the Civ player base has kind of been fractured a bit because normally Civ 6 is always ahead of another strategy game kind of in the same genre, Hearts of Iron 4. Right now, this is one of the rare times where Hoi 4 is ahead of it. Hoi 4 loves to be around like 20,000 concurrent players up to like 40,000, somewhere in there. To see Civ 6 dip below that's notable to me. Even EU4, again, a game that came out in 2013, is ahead of Civilization 7. That is not good. The fact that, well, first of all, we're like 2 months away. We're 2 months out from the release, maybe a little bit less or more, but we still don't have a workshop. That happened with Civ 6. It took a minute for the workshop. I don't think it did take this long though. We're extremely close to around the time Civ 6 released Steam Workshop, which was about 2 or 3 months after release. But here we are 2.5 months later, still nothing. We are coming upon that deadline. If it takes longer to release that workshop than it did for Civ 6, that's going to be a massive problem. I mean, just look at these charts. There was a pretty good explosion for the first 2 weeks, peaking at 84,000 players, and then every single weekend just dipping and dipping and dipping. And actually, it's not even doing that sharp cliff up and down. It's kind of just becoming more and more wavy, which is very dangerous. It looks like I think Civ 7 is going to probably average around 8,000 players permanently. I felt like Civ 6 still kind of stuck around in 2016, 2017. It was still kind of in the ballpark. I do remember Civ 5 still having more viewers, or still more players, but it was still somewhat behind, and it took maybe a year or two for them to equal out. And I'm assuming that's probably what Firaxis thinks, that it'll kind of equal out, but this looks particularly low. And here's the thing, what's scary, it doesn't feel like the transition from Civ 5 to Civ 6 was this drastic compared to the transition from Civ 6 to Civ 7. I think that's a little bit dangerous. At the core, Civ 5, Civ 6, kind of felt like the same game. I mean, they decided to expand the city. That was when you started to be able to build buildings outside of the city center. But for Civ 7, I mean, everyone has said it, all the veterans of the Civ community. For Civ 7, they've really decided to just really try something different. And you would think that with those drastically different features, it would at least lure more people in because they can't catch it anywhere else. They can't get these features from 5 or 6. You would think there would be a part of the player base that would stick with it that's more than just 8,000 players at a time. It's possible that a lot of people just don't have the money right now, especially not for that price tag. I mean, it's not like an indie game that someone could throw $10 at. Here's the thing, what's even more worrisome. I know that the part of the problem with the Steam Workshop is that it's hard to implement because they are on so many different platforms right now. Nintendo Switch, Xbox, which I love that stuff. I thought that's a fantastic idea. No matter where they go forward, I want them to continue to release on all platforms to get as many people into the Civ, to give as many people the Civ bug as possible, because I certainly got the bug, and I wouldn't have got it if they didn't start releasing kind of a Civilization Revolution on the Xbox way back in the day. So I hope they continue to do that at the very least, but they say that slows down development. That could majorly be slowing down development or release of the workshop or things like that, because you got to be able to, at least within a somewhat reasonable time, have these updates come out to every single platform. But this, like I said at the very beginning, this just feels different. Another thing that I've been noticing is I dropped some major videos on Civ 7. I don't normally release 45 plus minute videos on that game. And I did for this series, for the launch of Civ 7. I was doing something that I've always wanted to try and just like do an entire campaign, an entire Civilization campaign in one really long edited format here on YouTube. And those videos, they didn't do great in the very beginning, but the thing is, usually when you release that stuff on YouTube, like long form videos, they continue to rack in views over time because YouTube loves to push out videos with like really high amounts of watch time. Even if people don't like to, even if you have like the worst thumbnail in the world, the algorithm is going to continue to shove longer videos in your face sometimes if they really believe that, one, you're going to like it, and two, you're going to watch it pretty much all the way through, because that's the only job of the algorithm, is just to keep you on their platform for as long as humanly possible. The thing is about those videos that I did that are like 45 minutes long, 55 minutes long. I think I had one of the Civ 7 videos it was like an hour and 6 minutes. They're completely dead. They're just like dead in the algorithm, which means that they're just not performing very well on YouTube. Like there's not a whole lot of interest here on YouTube. Now, I'm sure from a developer side, you don't really care much about what's happening on the platforms. I mean, at the end of the day, you just want game sales to be up and you want to keep your player base happy. But that's kind of a big red flag. Now, I will admit that this was somewhat of a similar thing in Civ 6. Like, I remember views being kind of down compared to Civ 5 after the first like 2 or 3 months, but not dead. Like, not completely dead in the water. It feels like most people that started off playing Civ 7 just completely stopped. Now, it seems like there's definitely going to be a void there, I think, left. There's not going to be that many creators, and right now you really can't even play it because no one's really going to watch unless you do it for years and years and years, and you hope you pray the game gets better with updates. That's a risk that you can take if you're an up and coming creator. Just play Civ 7 right now for the next like 5-6 years, and then you just pray that Firaxis does a really good job. But I really hope for Firaxis' sake that, things do pick up. Again, I'm sure they're feeling very comfortable right now because this has been such a common thing. But things feel, like I said, really different this time. It just feels like a bigger emptiness. My only theory, I just don't feel like I even see. At least there was complaints constantly about it on different aspects of the internet. Like different corners of the internet would at least be continually complaining about Civ 5 and Civ 6. I'm hearing like just radio silence from Civ 7, which is far worse. I mean, the worst PR is nothing. The worst type of bad PR is not all that bad because at least they're talking about you. And that's what Civ 6 and Civ 5 had back in the day when they first released. People were always like, this game needs to do this game needs to do this, yada, yada, yada. I think that my theory about why this is especially bad is because of these features that they've implemented in particular. They're fundamental to the very DNA of this game. The fact that you can Civ switch, the fact that you can leader switch, those are things you cannot go back on. Firaxis is not going to be able to just be like, hey, never mind. This is kind of like, this is a weird reference because it's so long ago, but this is giving me vibes of like The Last Jedi from the Star Wars trilogy, the most recent Star Wars trilogy. Like, once that second film released, there's no going back on it in this game's development. Like, that's just a part of what's happening. They're going to have to commit to that. And that is why I really feel like Civ 7 feels different this time, for things being this low, for the community's interest being this low. It might just be people just fundamentally don't want to Civ switch or do not want to be able to play as, Cleopatra leading, America or something like that. I mean, just saying that out loud, it's like, it's a little bit odd. I didn't really have a major problem with it, but it just feels a little bit weird, a little bit wonky, and it's hard to see how the developers are really going to be able to dig themselves out of this hole, because they were able to dig themselves out of Civ 5 and Civ 6, and Ed Beach is a genius, the kind of the lead producer here, but with this, going down this particular route, I don't see how you really pull people back. If if there's if there's a subset of the community that just don't like the era system, they don't like that the game feels like 3 different chunks, or they don't like civ switching, like I said, or playing as all these random leaders, what can you really do to get them to come back? I feel like there's going to be 50% of the community, 50% if the developers right now are lucky, there's just going to be 50% permanently of the community that is just not going to be okay with Civ 7. No matter how much they fix it up, no matter how many DLCs they release and how many additional content and patches, and how many years into the future it gets developed, that change on a DNA level is probably just not going to resonate. Now, maybe I think this is part of Firaxis' strategy, and it always kind of has been, is you kind of have like players age out. You know what I mean? Like you start kind of getting interested, at least for me, around like maybe 14, 12 even, if you're, start diving down deeper and deeper into strategy games. And then this community in particular, when it comes to gaming, kind of ages themselves out around like 30-ish, depending on when they, kind of start to have a family. It gets harder. Not to say that you can't game when you have a family. Of course you can, but you kind of start to age yourself out of video games because you get older, you have more life responsibilities. It's harder and harder to game, but particularly in your early 20s, because early 20s is great. But I think maybe if Firaxis is lucky, a lot of the people that just refuse to get into Civ 7 because they just don't like Civ switching or whatever other feature of Civ 7, maybe they'll age out and newer kids will age in. That's always been a part of the strategy, especially because of the life cycle of these games. You're talking like 6, 7 years, 6, 7, 8 years. Maybe the Gen Alpha kids will age into this and only know this, and they'll never be able to go back to Civ 6 and Civ 6 and Civ 5 because they only love the era system and things like that. But it's hard to say. We're living in a very different world. That's the thing. You got to study the Gen Alpha kids, because if you got to know what they're going to like and predict what they're going to like for years into the future. But that could be something that's on this, on Firaxis' side, maybe the economy getting better. But right now, like I just keep saying, things are feeling more different than ever.